no workplace is absolutely perfect for what is required. This is a story of a journey that we have had, an unplanned journey, an unwelcome journey as well. But we've learned an awful lot by using our common sense. So it's not death by PowerPoint. I've got a colleague of mine who's helping with the slides. And what we'll start with is just a brief introduction for those of you who don't know who Saxon Packaging are, a slide about myself, my background and my experience, and then we'll be going into what was taken out of my mind of how we initially became aware of COVID, how we began to deal with it, and how we learned through the journey. So as I said, nobody's perfect, but this is the way we did it. As you see at the beginning, we were visited by a HSE inspector, and might I say, without me being here, which was a fantastic test as well. So as I said, we'll move on, but any questions that you've got, I'll be happy to answer as best I can. So as I said, if we can go to the first slide, please, Granger. Okay, Saxon Packaging, we're based in East Anglia, founded in 1986. It was an independent company. Basically, we started off in one industrial unit here in Suffolk, and as the business grew and grew, we kind of migrated to 5 industrial units, of which we have at the moment, with production and the main offices. And we also, on the same industrial estate, have a storage facility with one of our machines there as well. As you can see, 2016, Smurfit Kappa acquired Saxon Packaging, but because of the name that we've had in the industry, it was felt that Saxon Packaging name would remain, although we are part of the Smurfit Kappa group and pleased to be so. Next slide, please. Myself, that's me before COVID. I'm now fully grey now. 30 years experience for myself. I grew up in Great Yarmouth, which is close to Lowestoft, and coming from that particular area of the UK, I was based offshore, onshore, Great Yarmouth for a while. And for any of you people out there that know the oil and gas industry, for 10 years, I used to step on a plane at 5:30 on a Monday morning, fly to Aberdeen, and do the working week in the company's head offices there. Also traveled to Angola and West Africa to support companies like ExxonMobil, and I was country manager for them in Equatorial Guinea. And as I said, I've had various jobs. I'm not pure health and safety, as I grew up in the industry. I did logistics, operations, and then getting my qualifications in health and safety back, my initial qualifications anyhow, back in 1994. So 30 years in that industry, 3 years in the offshore renewables, because it was becoming the new thing, with a lot of decommissioning of gas platforms and oil platforms in the North Sea. If you look to your right, that was the biggest installation vessel in the world for a company called Seajax. The vessel is called Scylla, and it visited Great Yarmouth on that one occasion for a specialist naming ceremony after being built in Samsung Industries in Korea. Those of you who know this part of the country have watched the film yesterday about the Beatles. It was virtually taken at the hotel where they did the live act on the beach, but that vessel is in the outer harbour, and it's basically elevated between 25 and 30 meters, so it can impress all the local people. So after, as I said, after those long years, oil and gas and renewables, I decided to make a change. and was happy to enjoy a company like Saxon Packaging as their health and safety manager just over 3 years ago. So that's my history and experience, and I was delighted to bring it here because the Saxon Packaging days before Smurfit Kappa took over, a lot of jobs and responsibilities were shared, so there was never what you call a pure health and safety manager here. So I took this on brand new, which was, again, was an appeal to me, but again, lacking of knowledge of the manufacturing industry, cardboard, machines and whatever, which I've learned in the meantime. The next slide, please, Granger. Okay, picture on the left was taken in September the 21st, 2019. As a group, we had World Cleanup Day. These were colleagues of mine here in Lowestoft with family who all volunteered to clear up. We had no idea what was coming. This was virtually exactly 6 months prior to the first shutdown. Underneath, again, 23rd of December, this is the office crowd that we've got here supporting operations. Everyone close together, everyone happy. We've seen COVID in the news over in China, but no one really thought anything serious that was coming our way. The final bullet point there is reflection sickness on site. Our experience here in January of the following year, our general manager was taken quite ill towards the end of January. When he attempted to come to work at the end of the month, he had I think it was about 25, 30 mile trip. He found himself pulling over the road, exhausted, unable to understand exactly what was up with him. When he did eventually get here for the first few days, for the first time in 25 years myself, I had to go home at lunchtime, and I was off for the following week, which is never happened before. So we've had our suspicions on reflection, looking back. Could we have had COVID back then, but we just didn't know what it was and what we were dealing with, and that question will always remain unanswered. So it was good to reflect and look at the pictures, but this is how life used to be in the office. Can I have the next slide, please, Granger? Okay, to give you guys an idea, this is a map of the 5 industrial units that we have in the main production site here. To the left, we have the supporting offices where we had sales, production teams, and go on. And as I said, as the company grew and expanded, it virtually was like knocking through walls and building the business. So quite a big premise, a lot of machinery here, and I will reflect looking at that map. We had to put in specialist routes for COVID, which I'll refer to in more detail, but that just gives you a rough idea of the layout that we have here to give you some kind of understanding of the size of the operation that we've got. Next slide, please, Granger. I'll encourage you now to, if you've got any questions, each slide. This is from January to March in my head. The picture to your left is what colleagues started off doing at another factory in Europe. We had to act very fast on the social distancing. For ourselves, we got similar kind of barriers, but we also used barrier tape. But the first action we had, and I will hold my hands up, I was called into the general manager's office shortly on returning with our operations manager, and we knew it was coming and we had to act. My life as a health and safety manager, my working hours were originally 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, changed drastically. First off, as I just said, when it came over the news channels about social distancing, we had to look on our main factory door. When people entered our premise, we acquired 5 temperature handguns that were operated solely by myself as our colleagues walked in. We had obviously the hand gel, which I'm sure those of you who've been through this the same as us would understand that it was very difficult to get hold of in the early days, and we did receive a lot of support from Smurfit Kappa and being able to buy as a group. I personally stood on the machine as people walked in, and every individual had their temperature checked before they started work. In one of our smaller areas here, we call it the handwork areas. We've got a number of girls that used to work closely together. They put basically a lot of dividers inside boxes and things like that, but that they were working too close. We had to split them up and decide how we were going to manage the situation, because we were lacking of space in the factory. Therefore, our alternative unit, which is on the same industrial site here, which is mainly used as a storage facility, and we've got one of the main machines there, we had to use basically the size of a badminton court for get brand new tables in, and then start moving people around to make sure that they work safely. Toolbox Talks, from where I came in the oil and gas, it's treated different here. This is like a weekly talk that we have with all of the staff. Originally, back in February and March, because of the social distancing and everything that was focused on it, the 2-meter rule came in, and we needed to do something to help people with the visual aids, you know, on the floor, inside and outside. Inside, we have a blue safe walkway. What we're going to do? Do you use the standard hazard tape, or was there other answers? Outside, we came up with a quick idea. We've got quite a large forecourt facility here, which is next to our smoke huts and where the car parking is. We basically got a cardboard tube and some spray paint, and we did dots that were 2 meters away. We were then able to get the entire shift that were working that time together outside, socially distanced. Now here at Saxon, we run 2 shifts, one 6 o'clock in the morning through to 1:30 in the afternoon, and then the guys clock on at 1:30 and they run through to 10 o'clock at night. Approximately in total with the sales staff, we've got 67 here, so that just gives you an idea of the size of business that we have. As I said, inside on the same walkways, we use the same method. We put the spots, so it gave people the idea of what 2 meters was, and we then started, as I said, to acquire masks, hand sanitizer, soap, and go through an increased cleaning regime. Everything there was really difficult to get hold of. Everyone was looking for it. We were helped a lot by group, and it was fantastic. But then, as I said, you started then have to look at rest areas. How are we going to improve them? We opened up a garden area at the back that sort of was redundant for a number of years. We had to buy or fabricate extra smoke huts and bike sheds and put them at different parts of the building, purely because, you know, people weren't allowed to sit next to each other anymore. We had to observe the 2 meter social distancing. But more importantly of all, because it was something COVID was suddenly hitting us, we didn't know how to prepare, because we'd never managed anything like this before. So again, with senior members of staff here were called together by the general manager, and we needed sort of back to review the business continuity plan. And you guys sort of linked with businesses and stuff like that. You know, the business continuity plan is something that you have in place for the insurance company for disaster, for fire. Should the place burn down, how you're going to sort of carry on with the business. And that's something that we had to look at immediately and sort out. I had to do it overnight after 2 meetings, and then agree that all senior members of staff here had to take their computers home every single night, just in case we had another breakout, and the place had to be shut down. On top of that, talking about factory errors and whatever, before COVID, we had a standard factory entrance in one door where everyone comes in and clocks in. We had drivers coming in, so we suddenly realised that combination locks had to be put on doors because we had to stop any unwelcome visitors entering our workspace. So a lot of thought going on. Then we had to really lock up this building and then work out how we were going to manage things like parcel deliveries or other drivers coming in and whatever. Lucky enough, in the administration section here, we do have a reception room where people sign in. That became our safe area where boxes and things can be dropped off, picked up. And we can basically do temperature checks on people at the time if they were looking to enter the building. So again, security came under it, but we were preparing as fast as we could. Has anyone got any questions on that side at all when we first began? Well, okay. Let's move on to the second slide. Top picture that you can see is what I've just referred to. This is a table that we set up in our visitor room. At the back, clearly displayed is, and I hope, as I said, if you guys in UK especially that are involved, it's the government COVID compliance certificate to demonstrate that you have looked at how your operation works, you've done sufficient risk assessments, and basically it's like a virtual certificate guarantee that you've looked at it. Alongside it is a lot of paperwork that regarding the early days of COVID, the signs of it, together with declaration sheets that we displayed and used, that was hopefully supplied, well, nicely supplied by group in support of us, and going through the standard procedures. And again, you can see the temperature gun is there. So this is the beginning. And originally, the compliance certificate was for factories and production units. So we had to deal with that and improve, enhance procedures that we already had in place. We were lucky, again, because being supported by Smurfit Kappa, we have a head of health and safety there that assisted with all the sister units we've got. Basically, I believe there's about 37 in the UK. And we had to go through a template. Lucky for us, we had already done this in-house. We had prepared ahead of the main Smurfit Kappa group, and we had our procedures in place that we'd adhering to. So it was quite pleasing for me as the health and safety manager to go through the risk assessment to say, yes, we've completed this, and it had been done on a previous date. The new work entry and departure routes was quite a challenge. As I said on the previous slide, we had one way in the factory and one way out. And as things developed with COVID, you found out that was unacceptable, that we couldn't have people passing each other, as said, on our safe walkways. They were too tight. So therefore, we introduced a new system which operates even now at 5:30 in the morning and at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We have new work entry and departure routes. Basically, in our admin building, the colleague clocks in, he comes up a set of stairs to a mezzanine floor, walks along it, and as you'll see in a later slide, I have a testing station which I use for colleagues to do the initial temperature check. and also to talk to the individuals that day to ensure mental health, what they're like. You can judge. It's sometimes early in the morning, people are not too talkative, but we did get quite a few questions of people being worried about friends, relatives, what do they do? Do they need to self-isolate? So for me, and this business being a smaller one, you could never sort of do it in a large business. It was beneficial because we were trying to stop my time on the floor and not crossing people with the 2 meter rule. So it gave me a unique opportunity to talk to individuals each day and find out where they were. Workstation cleaning and common touch areas. In the past, the guys had a machine they worked at, they cleaned up at the end of the day. We had to introduce separate cleaning materials, alcoholic wipes and whatever for the common touch areas. And people took ownership of their particular work area. And again, we produced documentation for this as a checking mechanism, and also for me, having an audit background as well, we needed to make sure that it was being done. We have a site cleaner here. The lady used to come 3 days a week. The frequency changed. It became 5 days a week, full-time job, and being supported by the people on the shop floor on both shifts. They were all given the ownership of that. Smurfit Kappa Group nominated in the early days, back in May, we had to have a COVID lead. This takes place even now. The COVID lead is not me, it's the operations manager. And they have meetings twice a week as a minimum. If anything happens, a group call is done. Basically, the COVID lead at every single factory talks to what we have a lady in charge of UK and Ireland with any updates, and that was particularly good as far as paperwork was concerned and the changing, basically what Boris was saying, legislation, what was required. They were updating paperwork as and when, firing it out to the COVID leads, who would ensure that at every Smurfit Kappa factory that this was all being adhered to. So it worked well. For myself, I took on the lead below, which they call the hygiene lead, and it was the cleaning regimes, what we were learning from other factories on a Monday call, which still takes place now. We talk away issues, what's going on, any problems that people have got to address. It works well, and it also gives me the extra lead. I have a lot of cleaning materials that we buy locally, but as most of you know, when it wasn't available, Group had a very large buying power, and in Northampton we got quite a storage of different goods like masks and the alcohol cleansers. So we actually informed them what our stock levels were and to keep things rolling here, as best we can. Fortnightly fogging in all areas. We brought in a company, outside company, that were doing Waitrose and that, and the fogging carried on even now. It lasts up to 6 weeks. The particular chemical goes on all work surfaces, doesn't cause any damage, and as I said, we're told that it kills COVID on the spot. Every factory, as far as Smurfit Kappa is concerned, has this done on a fortnightly basis. The particular technician that comes in, he assures me that, so people like Waitrose have it done once every 6 weeks. So we're kind of over the top on that, which I think is good. Once the factory is fogged, and it has to be done without personnel here. So myself, I come in late one night when the shift leaves off. We do the fogging process, and I'm not allowed to enter the building until an hour afterwards, when the chemical starts to clear, to do the lockup. Again, as I said, I'm sure what many of you did, the group came out with what we call a strictly no visitors policy. That only people that really were allowed on this premise was for regulatory inspections, say like for Lola, for your lifting gear, and should we have maintenance requirements if there's breakdowns, or as I said, if we had to have people in, they had to be authorized. Meanwhile, again, you see to the right, we're ISO 9001 quality management system and environmental and BRC. They still had to take place. The 9001 and 14001 was done remotely, but for BRC, for hygiene wise, we acquired special permission, which was later on in the year, for a guy to visit it. But all the way through this, we had to drill into the personnel. From our first meetings outside, is that should COVID hit our workplace, the effects could be devastating if we had to do a shutdown. It's not a case that the place will be lost for a couple of weeks production. We potentially could lose customers. And for the staff themselves, if we lose customers and they don't come back, you know, there was always the fear that redundancies could follow in the future. Therefore, the general manager, operations manager, and myself underlined the fact at each meeting is that all these procedures that we took in place had to be adhered to. If people start to ignore what they've done, it would be dealt on regarding disciplinary procedures as a breach of health and safety rules. Sadly, at the beginning, within the first month, we had to do this. We have a locker room here where we had 4 maximum people allowed into it on a Friday afternoon. People want to get home. Somebody broke those rules, and when they were questioned by one of their other colleagues, the reaction was not a pleasant one, and sadly we had to put a warning in to that particular individual, but it sent a message across to the rest of the workforce, and I'm pleased to say we've never had any instance after that, so it all works out quite positive. Has anyone got questions regarding that at all?
Yes, Philip, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, how many people do you have working on your site?
In the production area, we have normally approximately 30 per shift, which, as I said, is the 0600 to 1300. It's the larger shift of the two, because we have people who are on permanent days, and we also have people that do days one week and lates the following week. Originally in the sales office here, I'd say we were about 10 to 15 people that were placed here. As we move on to the other slides, you'll see that we then started to lose people to work from home, and this place became nearly deserted apart from a few members of the senior management team.
Right. The reason I ask is that, I mean, you've put a very robust procedure you've got, and you put a great deal of resource into that. And yeah. I'm just wondering if smaller manufacturers, whether they would have the financial resources or even people resources to put procedures in place, and therefore, are there certain steps there that you feel are absolutes, no matter what the size? For example, the fogging. Do you feel that that is something that a small company, a small drinks manufacturer, for example, should do, even if they've only got a few people?
That's a really good question, Ruth. Not having employed the foggers myself, I have heard that they are phenomenally expensive. They were called into radio stations, and the demand went through the roof. As a smaller company, what we have learned, as I said, and it goes into other slides that we're going, you actually can purchase the fogging equipment yourself these days, machine and chemicals, and we went through face fit testing a few weeks ago, of which myself and we've got 500 other individuals. If it was me in a smaller company, I don't think the money would be there to do this professional fogging, but I believe the machines that you can buy, we use one called Construction Clean, Smurfit Kappa went to others. I mean, to give you a description of them, those flying on things that picks up leaves in gardens, they're a smaller version of that. You have to seal off a room and do it with the chemical fogging. It's reasonably easy to use, and we are prepared here for that particular, should we have an instant breakout, say in the office, or someone has been done with COVID. So I would look to invest and find out these fogging machines. If I was a smaller company, look to investigate into that. Okay, any more questions at all? No. Next slide, please, Granger. Okay.
Sorry, Philip, I froze there. I've got one more question. It's from Philip Downs. Philip asks, do the afternoon shift work on the same machines as the early shift? So in other words, is there a cleaning procedure or are there issues there?
Yes, there is. Before the shift finishes, they do a full clean down procedure, of which we produce documentation that they need to sign off. Also, that I need to clarify with you, as when the morning shift leaves off, they would go through the old part of the factory, which was the old entrance door, out of the building, whereas the people that I would call the on-signers are coming through a different part of the building. We ensured, as I said, as things developed and we improved things, that one shift arrived and the other shift left. They didn't meet each other. There was the social distance in there, because it was so important that we had to reroute people's work access. But as far as the machines were concerned, yes, there was a clean down regime. Again, like I said, it's recorded and signed off, and then when the new people start, they will be wiping down the common touch points.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, next, the government compliance moved from factories to office premises. We, again, were lucky enough, we'd already addressed this because we didn't treat it as a separate factory or working areas. But suddenly it came into the people working from home. We went through that lovely picture where we had all the people in the jumpers closely working together. And as you know, an office environment, there's what I call good banter. People have a laugh and a joke, but you get on with your work. We had to look at it, and virtually the entire sales office started to work from home. We lost a planning manager to work from home, and our factory manager originally to work from home. In this office, there was a financial controller, myself, the operations manager, and our general manager were only essential people to be here, as well as the shift supervisors. It was shocking, really, to see your own office empty, and that lovely noise in the morning of people just talking away has gone. Maximum room occupancy. We looked at the signage went on each room of the number of people that were allowed to come. And as I said, we had to look at arriving for work. Now, every person coming in through the door is treated the same as the production people. We have the temperature checks done. People working at home was fine at first. Everyone did it. My wife had to move from the hospital and go work on our kitchen table, and I'm sure many people have the same stories. But we then had to address, are they working comfortably? What are their workstations like? Are they tucked off in a corner? So they were asked to send pictures back to me to say, is this sufficient? Is this okay? Can we help you? And we had to go out and purchase a number of desks from Argos just to make sure that the people were comfortable at home. The distance and spots were still working okay outside. We still had the meetings. But what was unique here is that we have a mezzanine floor that was used mainly for travel purposes and storing of paperwork. We've got a small demo area, but it was a large area. So what we produced, what we call Saxon safe pods, it literally was move a desk out of an office, put it on the mezzanine floor, and then put the spaces between them. And my original thoughts were, That's for any future visitors that need to work alone that we can't have in the boardroom. But as we learned lessons further on, we couldn't do without a factory manager. We couldn't do without the planning manager. They needed to be on site for us to be able to manage the operation. So therefore, instead of going into the production office, they now work on the mezzanine floor, which has worked out really well, along with our CAD room manager. The same, good note for Philip, the same as for the guys on the machines out on the production floor, we had to bring in the office desk cleaning log. Every individual has got a log on their desk. They've got all the cleaning materials, hand sanitizers. When they arrive in the morning, they clean. When they leave, they clean. Myself and our operations manager do check the paperwork, and the same applies for the boardroom and kitchen. We've got logs. With suddenly managers of this business have become cleaners as well. You have to. Morning tours, safety rounds. Operation manager and myself go through the entire building, including production areas, and we look at the workstations near the machines. Are the wipes in the bins? Are the logs been correctly done? We're not policemen, but we needed to check, and we needed to make sure that in the canteens and the toilet areas that there were sufficient cleaning materials there. Are the compulsory masks and snood and visors, they came in later. Smurfit Kappa produced their own version of the snood, and we originally had the Smurfit Kappa visors. Otherwise, we were out there using virtually the 3-ply like surgical masks, but we had good stocks of them, and as things went on later dates of June to September, they became compulsory, not comfortable, but compulsory, and we had to use them. Other sites had problems, like with toilets, visiting drivers, can we come in and use your facilities? Some of them were turned down. We don't want you in here. You've traveled about 5 other destinations. You're quite a risk. But we were reminded by a senior management for Smurfit Kappa that under the Health, Safety and Welfare Act, if someone needs to go to the toilet, you can't say no. So therefore, they went through the temperature checks, and and they were monitored all the time that they were on site. I think the other thing to say, has devastated a lot of offices was, drinks rounds. Suddenly, where someone in an office went, it was their turn, made 3 or 4 drinks for other people in their department, you can't touch cups. You then became your own boss of getting your own drinks and then cleaning down in the kitchen. Drinks rounds have gone. And it came as a surprise to a lot of people who came briefly when we had that phase to come back. So again, a lot of learning's going on. Has anyone got any questions on that one? Because I do realise I'm overrunning a little bit. No? Okay, Granger, can we go to the next one, please? Okay, the picture we have here, and now we're approaching the second wave shutdown. Granger, being marketing, had this pallet system built for our summer barbecue that basically never really happened. We had pizzas to staff to thank them for all their efforts. But it came up on the mezzanine floor. It's now our testing station where I am each morning. And as you can see at the minute, there are masks, there's cleaning materials, there are spare guns there. And we also have a safety week going on for Smurfit Kappa where the freebies of mugs and stuff like that are on there. So yeah, this is where all of the employees that are on signing for the factory came first thing in the morning from 5:30, and they arrive at 1 o'clock. The office staff will come directly to my desk before they take up their own position at their own desk in the morning. That's how we do it. The compliance, the factory and office, we decided off our own back that we would, because of the second wave, would start review it again, not pushed by group, but we wanted to see if we can improve things. The attitude was, honestly, if we had a breakout here, could we say that we've done everything possible to prevent it? Traveling to work by car, this did cause quite a kickback. People share lifts and are helped. We insisted that there would be a driver, and one passenger rule who had to sit in the rear of the vehicle on the opposite side of the driver, with both individuals having a mask on, and the window wound down to at least 1 inch to allow airflow into the car. People weren't pleased, but they understood. We've updated the masks and snoods from group. That was good. The 3-ply cleanable mask came in, the snoods came in. Again, all improvement. The daily management tours increased as well to make sure that everyone was doing it. But I will say the workforce we've got here had to, and they did buy into it really well, and I'm really proud of them. Other sites are going, Smurfit Cap, the bigger sites are going through the facial recognition systems. I believe they run anything from 1,000 up to £3,000-4,000. We decided not to go for this for the simple reason that my contact with every employee in this company on a day-by-day basis to not only sort of see, first of all, are they okay with temperature? We have the handguns, we have the in-ear temperatures, but again, for questions and one-to-one, we will carry on as a small business doing that personal contact, because I think it's very valuable. The site visitor approval system, again, the group came up with new paperwork. Anyone visiting here had to have prior approval from the general manager to give why they want to visit, and a damn good reason why. The colleague video we had came out mid to late in the year. It was a true story. One of our colleagues in March went down with COVID. There was live pictures of him lying on the sofa with what they call the COVID cough. He went into hospital, and they were showing pictures of him leaving and at home now, still hasn't recovered, struggling to walk. I had individuals in this boardroom that I'm sitting now in tears of how it affected that guy. It was probably the best thing that we could have done to bring it home to people of how it really is affecting when there was a lot of doubters out there. Yeah, and the poor chap isn't, I think, great at the moment. We developed, like I said, new work areas in other factories that we've got here, storage units, and fabricated more desks. They're now in place, but we got busier and busier and busier throughout the year because of Amazon and everything that was going on. We had to take on a record number of temporary personnel, and it became very clear that because where we lived in the country and we were close to Great Yarmouth, which was one of the worst areas affected, that the temporary personnel that were coming in were an increased risk. Sadly, being temporary personnel, they originally didn't feel part of the team. They're inducted and they're asked to adhere to our procedures. We had to lose a few of them who didn't respect it. They didn't clean, and after going to the toilet and things, and one of them in their mother tongue actually said to one of our other people, sod COVID, I don't believe in it. We couldn't risk keeping that kind of person. So we were very focused on that, and it worked out well in the end. We got a good group of people, and the most positive thing was that we've actually taken 5 of them on as personal staff at the beginning of this year because of the increased business that we've got. But as a lot of you know, the relaxed attitude to the new shutdown cannot compare to the first one. The perfect storms we had, like I said, we got busier and busier. There was a lot of strain on the people that were working here in the factory and the skeleton management teams, and of course those at home now being isolated. As we approached Christmas, tempers were becoming very frail, and we had to deal with that as well. We had shortages on supply of cardboard from other factories. It was a UK-Europe thing, and we were in a position where we were having to make numerous phone calls each day to customers to saying that their orders had been delayed through no fault of our own. We simply weren't getting the supplies in here to work with, which again threw pressure out on production areas who thought people like management and planners and people like that weren't doing their job properly. They were, and I'll take my hat off to them. this was incredible pressure that people were put on the lead up to Christmas. Anyone got questions on that?
I've got one, Philip.
Yeah.
Have you been able to benchmark your company against others in terms of incidence of COVID? You know, proving that these robust procedures have actually reduced incidence of COVID in your factory.
I'm touching wood at the minute, Ruth. On our board table, we in Lowestoft are very proud to say that we haven't suffered from COVID. Some of our colleagues over in Ireland have. Other factories and premises in Great Yarmouth have had breakouts. We consider ourselves lucky that we haven't had it here, but like I said at the beginning, we're doing everything we can to keep it out, but we're not perfect. And as I said, it really is. As a benchmark and a HSE visiting, we're one of the larger employers and one of the larger factories. We're doing great, but there are, particularly when we got to begin the second waves, there was quite a few places in Great Yarmouth, a few places in Lowestoft. We felt it was creeping quite near. All we could do, I think it's like sort of building a sandcastle on the beach with the tide coming. You had to be very, we were confident we were doing everything we could. And if we step back and look at ourselves to say, should we have this breakout, have we honestly done everything we possibly can? And the answer remains yes, we are, but we know it's not perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one, please, Granger. So we now move to Christmas after being on a tremendous amount of pressure and the lateral flow tests. If you look carefully at the picture left, this is the mezzanine floor that I've been remarking to. At the back on the right is the stairway the staff come into, and they walk along this walkway. We set up 6 testing stations for lateral flow tests that we got for group, and we structured on the staff arriving, not all together, where they were given time slots when they were to come, be tested and sat for 20 minutes before we released them into the factory, because rules were relaxed over Christmas and we were fearful that this is the time that things could happen. If you look to the left of the testing station, you'll see these little dots on the floor. We had manufactured special dots, like Smurfit Kappa, Saxon signage on, they go on the floor. They're all 2 meters apart. Originally, we just used masking tape to do it. So again, we improved it. It looks better. It looks more professional. And we use the same spots to do the difference between desks and chairs at desks between stations and to make sure that people don't go within that sort of 2 meter area. So on the 5th of January, bearing in mind we were due back on the 6th, we were behind with orders. We were so busy before Christmas that we decided to come back on that Monday, day early. The lateral flow tests were also needed for any staff members that come back for the odd days. And we got what we call here the introduction of Pathfinder devices. These are small devices that you used to have if you were on call somewhere that fit into the pocket. They're a behavioural tool that everyone must wear as part of their PPE now. They will buzz and rattle like a duck should someone come within 2 meters of you. You can imagine introducing this in the first few weeks. These things were going off like crazy. People accidentally left them at home or deliberately left them at home. We had spares, but this is now part of their PPE that they wear as a behavioural device. Other places had a serial number where they could track people. We found it was unfair because, again, working distance in the factory, sometimes you have to go within the 2 meter distance, but it was a good warning device. The machine check logs, again, we tweaked them to make sure that things were being cleaned properly and they were being monitored. Manager supervisor cleaning logs, again, myself, the supervisors, I go around cleaning stairways, I check the locker rooms, I clean the drinks dispenser, and it has to be done 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the afternoon. And as I've referred to as well, the emergency fogging kit was supplied by group, and we had face fit testing a couple of weeks back now, but we're ready to act. And I would suggest to smaller companies to look into this. It would be a cheaper option, and it's something that I think is very beneficial. Because my hours have changed from 5:30 to 1:30 on a Thursday afternoon, we had the unannounced visit from the HSE inspector. I'd known through hygiene calls that Manchester and about 3 or 4 of our other plants had been visited, some more than once. Mike Pye, who's our operations manager, was on duty at the time. To gain access to this building, you need to pick up a phone and go to the front area, which I showed you earlier. Mike was introduced to the inspector, told why he was here and what he wanted to do. So therefore he was put through the procedures. We had to temperature check. He had to fill in the documentation for the track and trace. He obviously filled in the standard visitors form, but we also issued them with this Pathfinder device, which is social distancing, and explained the rules. When he came through the main door and saw the social distancing spots, the signage that we had here, the cleaning regimes, the traceable paperwork, I don't think he's ever seen anything like it in Lowestoft. And as I said, he didn't extend his visit because the evidence was there that we were treating it seriously. We had documentation as proof that we're doing the checkpoints. And on 2 or 3 of the occasions when he was in the main admin building, he went within the 2-meter distance to our operations manager and professionally and politely was reminded that he was breaking that rule, which does, it scored us points. Mike, working with me as a COVID rep, he probably couldn't have got anyone better to have brought him into the building. But that certificate that you saw for the government compliance, not only were we showing that, underneath it is a very detailed risk assessment or 2, the original and the review that we did back in October, November, in place as proof that we were monitoring the situation. So it all worked out well. The guy was very satisfied and said it was one of the best places that he'd visited in the local area. And we were pleased to hear that from someone else. Again, not boasting, we did what we could. It's been tested and, we came out well. So, yeah, I turned up for work next morning to be told this and kind of made my year. I'm really pleased. Any questions on that at all? Next one, please, Greg. We're nearly there. As I said, I'm very conscious of the time. Okay, what are we doing now? We've learned a lot in the last year, but as I said, it's about continual improvement. The lateral flow tests are, I think, invasive. People do flinch at them. They're not the most pleasant things, but we have got new tests arriving here. A group have gone for these less intrusive saliva tests. Just get rid of that, something's come up on the screen. And they're going to be introduced straight after Easter. Every one of our employees is going to be given a kit to test themselves at home. And at this moment in time, Smurfit Kappa Group, as well as ourselves, have revisited like the 2-meter task review where, engineering teams and people like that need to work closer. So therefore, you've got your masks, we've got the plastic visors, we do what we call, it's common in the industry, last minute risk assessments, or we call them point of work risk assessments, to minimize any contact between 2 people. And as I said, the latest thing that's come out is airflow. Ventilation in offices, factories and production areas. We have aircon here, which is fed from outside. A lot of our sister factories have invested a lot of money to make sure the airflow is there. canteens and places where applicable, we try to open windows, which will be a lot easier come spring and summer, but didn't go down too well. Toolbox Talks, particularly for people that are working from home, instead of instructing people week on week about what we're doing, we're giving people 15 minutes just to have a general chat, catch up with each other, all the stuff that they're missing, because we realize, you're working on your own. It's a lonely thing. Toolbox talk procedures, we've changed for one very, very good reason. We used to pull the whole shift together, the general manager, myself, and the ops manager, and go through what we needed to. Our colleagues in one of the sister factories did similar in a massive boardroom, kept the social distancing, but they had a breakout of COVID because there was a large number in one area. They lost a number of machines, personnel who had to go home. We now have changed that. We will pull people off 2 or 3 at a time in a machine and talk to them individually on Toolbox Talks. It takes so much more time. It's half day, full day to catch all the shift, but it's safer than having them all together. Again, we've had to change the way we work because it just makes it safer for them, and they fully understand it. And on another side of the coin, you look at, if you get people in large numbers who you're dictating to and telling things, you ask for any questions at the end, people are too shy. If you've got smaller groups of 2 or 3, they're more likely to come forward with the obvious questions, and we have felt is more beneficial. We are recording all sort of vaccinations that are done for group as well. Quite a few of us, like me, over 50 now. It's going really well, but again, we're fully traceable on that with group. Finally, as I said, second wave looks to be coming to an end. Lots of things are going on, but we're very conscious of the third wave in Europe. So all of it is about, next slide, please, Granger. I just want to understand the behaviour and attitude. All of our staff had to buy into this and realise what the implications could be of your workplace, of you paying your mortgage and whatever, should a breakout happen. We were very conscious in putting that across and telling them the implications. Like I said at the beginning, nobody or no workplace can be perfect, and we will always hold our hands up, so we're not. Everywhere's different, but you just need to do as what you call practically and effective as best you can. The biggest risk we feel is once people are outside work and things are being relaxed at this moment in time with people mixing, that's something we can't control. But when they're here and we're talking to them, we make them aware of that, and it's all about how the business could be affected. So, as I said, we're a year on this week. The journey continues, and we'll continue to learn. But I think just using common sense in the workplace, making people aware why you're doing these things, not to stop them working and make them feel uncomfortable. But believe you me, the snoods, the masks and the safety glasses are not agreeing with each other. We're having a lot of issues that people need to try and get around, but we just got to be sensible and just talk with each other and then work things out and then move forward. So as I said, touch wood, we've not had COVID here. We've had people who had to isolate because relatives have had it, but they've been honest enough, and it's the same with the temps. People have been honest enough to tell us. Another big fear was COVID breakout. You can't afford to lose money. You're a temp, but you come into a workplace and your house or wherever you live has been infected. So again, honesty from people that we've been lucky to get and we've supported has worked, and we hope it will carry on for the future. Any questions?
I've got another one, Philip. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, you've put in huge number of procedures. Do you see that you will continue some of these procedures once COVID is over?
Cleaning regimes, Ruth, things that are associated with machine clean downs, logging. It improves us as far as BRC hygiene is concerned and gives us more detailed records. I think, yeah, there are, once COVID is over, hopefully, we've gained a lot. I mean, as every business knows, I mean, a lot of people can work from home. The office does feel bare, but my poor wife, as I said, she's now been at home a year, and probably a lot of people have sort of noticed this as well. If you're at work and you go home, the wife hasn't talked to anyone all day at home. Even she's got Teams and things like us, but there's no one to have that office chat with. So a lot of people still work from home, but procedure-wise here, we have tightened things up a lot. The security locks we've got on doors has made the site a lot more secure, but record keeping, cleaning regimes. One of them I mentioned that I go myself into the canteen. I used to clean every table, every chair, make sure it's done, tugged it off. The guys and girls here have all bought in. Sometimes I walk in there and they've done it themselves. Not ask them to, because we want to log it, but the minute they use the table, they're making sure they do it themselves as an extra. And we've just been fully supportive, but just getting that behaviour and attitude out of people to make them appreciate that you're not doing it to beat them down and do the rules. We're working together, and as far as I'm concerned, here at Smurfit Kappa Saxon, we're like a family, so we just want to look after each other. We're lucky that a lot of people have been here a lot of years. We don't have a high staff turnover, and the biggest test was going towards Christmas last year with all the problems in that perfect storm. It was just one thing mounted on top of each other. How people kept their tempers, I don't know. We had to step back a few times and just remind people that we're all going through this. But behaviour and attitude, stick together as a team, and then understand the reasons why we're doing it. No one wants to become ill.
Great. I can't see any other questions. So I think it's just down to me to thank you, Philip. I think that was an excellent presentation. It really gave a lot of learnings, especially for smaller companies who maybe don't have the same resources yourself and the same backing from Smurfit Kappa. And I would recommend anybody to have a look at the video, because it will be out there in the ether. And definitely a lot of learnings to be taken. Thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah, thank you.